Good morning, and welcome to Known and Trusted. I'm Anna Sonoda, and I'm joined today by a very special guest, Fiona Long, a public health specialist with a long background of over 15 years working at the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, a former teacher, and a mom of three boys. Today, we're going to be talking about the importance of mothering sons in 2026. She also happens to be my big sister. Welcome, Fiona.
How are you today?
Thank you so much for doing this show and being with us today. It's so important to get perspective from moms in the trenches, and you are the mother of three sons. Can you tell us about the age range of your boys, please?
Yes, so I have a 14-year-old who will be 15 in August, 13-year-old, and an 11-year-old. They're 18 months apart, so they are very close to each other, which means as soon as one bad behavior comes in, everyone adopts it. And as soon as we are trying to get rid of a good beat, like trying to get better, everyone takes the bad thing, and it just takes a while. But it's lovely. They are friends and they work together. I couldn't be happier with how lovely my little family is.
Well, I brought you on today because I have come across a lot of articles and a lot of questions about masculinity and the role that parents, and in our case, mothers, can play in helping develop and build young men in 2026. Can you speak a little bit about what your experience has been in parenting sons? Has there been any shift or change over the course of the last 15 years as you've been mothering?
Well, as a mom, I feel like we hold a very special place. And I'm trying to raise boys who will be really good friends and boyfriends and hopefully partners. And I'm looking to this long term perspective of what I'm trying to give my sons while also having the real time. No, you can't have candy for breakfast. And no, you have to clean your room and you have to brush your teeth and have some very sensible messages around like hygiene and personal nutrition with the goal that hopefully all of these things build someone who has self discipline and competency and is caring and empathetic in the world. And when I try and think about my children, I think about them in our family, but then also at their schools and with Boy Scouts and with the different communities they're in, and how to make them maybe not loved and all these things, but like someone that people want to be around. I feel like for life, everyone kind of needs a bit of a purpose and they need connection. And for what I want for my boys is for them to be likable enough that someone pulls them in and says, here's a purpose, help me with it, and let's be connected to each other. And I think that's becoming harder and harder than it used to be. And I hate that because here I am trying to do a hard thing that's getting harder.
Why do you think that's becoming harder? What are the
Because
examples you find harder?
in my world, I think it's a little harder for boys anyway. I think girls do social play from an early age, and boys do parallel play, and are physical and they are more object oriented. So I think there are natural differences that just make this part a little bit harder. But I also feel like a lot of my son's friends are on cell phones, and when they do play, they are playing on a video game together. And we do have video games. My oldest son, he's the ninth grader. He just recently got a cell phone. It's not that the technology is bad, but I want them to use the technology so they are playing with other people and trying to do a goal together. And I want them to be able to use this technology to learn and to have great things, but not to in any way like bring out some of the awful things that we know exist on the internet. I don't want them being radicalized or even seeing things that they're not ready for emotionally. Childhood is such a precious time. And I feel like as a mom, I want to protect that for them. And that means that I am shielding them from information I don't feel they can handle. We are very much not rushing. A lot of our messages are just delay. You're going to get a girlfriend. We want you to have a girlfriend, but we aren't rushing to date. We aren't rushing to do things that are adult things because you're not there yet, because you're 13 and 14 and 11. And like when you're that age, you should be camping and fishing and doing simple things. And the world wants our kids to be adults right away and sexual and funny in a way that's like inappropriate humor, I feel. Like, what's the rush, people?
Yeah. It's interesting as I hear you speaking about this, I'm wondering, sort of, even in our own community here, what is influencing the channels that are trying to age up our kids? And what are those channels that are helping support families like mine and like yours who want to keep childhood childlike for as long as possible? Have you found any luck with different channels that have been very supportive of respecting age limits and age appropriate content or age activities?
Well, certainly, Boy Scouts is a huge part of our life. We are very lucky that we are part of a very big, robust Boy Scouts that has lots of families. So we have lots of moms and dads that support these kids. And for us, it's been a great way to have older kids helping younger kids. And so there's a way that you're developing competencies because even the younger kids, every year we get a new cohort of boys, and we just had some crossover recently. And so now even my fifth grader is an expert to somebody else where he's teaching knots and he's showing skills and he gets to be a leader. And I think a lot of these boys, it's very fundamental. You know, if you know something, you know, if I can cook an egg. And now I know I can cook an egg. And now that confidence boils into everything I do. And if you do not have competencies, if you know, I don't know for this test the right words and how to do this, you betray yourself. And I think if we want to raise confident people, you have to know things in order to be competent. And I think we do as parents sometimes ourselves a disservice because we want to help our kids so much that we overhelp. And now our kids are like, I don't know how to do that. Mom does my science fair project for me. Mom helped me with that. I can't spell those words because someone else has been doing it for me, even if it's just your computer or an Alexa. And therefore, the kid's very appropriately unsure. And instead of being a parent where we're like, the edge of your comfort zone, and then we stretch back a bit and let the kids explore where it's unsafe. And I feel like when I taught, I spent 2 years teaching in a Montessori school. So we had mixed age groups, which I loved because often we'd put a more experienced kid with a learning kid, and that often switched depending on subjects. It's not totally a straight line, but the experience of having to struggle and having someone there who knows what's right and somebody who is near them struggling makes all the difference. And making our kids comfortable with struggling is part of our job as a parent. That they go out and they're like, ooh, I don't know how to do this, but I do know other things, and I'm going to fake it and be brave and try.
One of the things that I keep running into a consistent behavior in other moms. I keep observing, especially in dynamics with sons, there is a sense of what you're talking about right now. This sort of, I couldn't possibly expect them to do it. I need to do it for them. And I wonder if we can just sort of throw that ball around a little bit, because I know that a lot of moms who are listening might be moms of sons who are a bit younger than ours are. And I want to help moms gain perspective about their role and how important their role is in those younger years and how that role shifts, especially for moms as children grow into adolescence and those teenage years.
So this is something I do that you dumb luck into things when you're a parent. Anyway, so I dumb lucked into this thing where if we are ordering food for my kids, like Costco food court, nothing, or anywhere when they order food, but also, yeah, Costco. But like my son, my 13-year-old had to pick up a prescription, and we went to pick up the prescription, and I stood like 3 feet back. I had given him the card, and he was like, he was turning to me. He's like, when's my birthday? And I'm like, and I didn't answer. And he's like, I know my birthday. It's, and he figured it out. But ever since my kids have been little, I've been like, you go, you order the deli meat at the counter. You do this, you can do it. And they struggle and they're like, and they're unsure and they look back and I'm there. I'm not going anywhere. Much like a kid when they're very little, goes away to play, but comes back and checks in that you're still like there and watching. I feel like for all that we could easily order the meat quickly and we could get the prescription quickly, by stepping back and letting the kid have to do it themselves, it means by the time they're in high school and driving and they need to put gas in the car, my kids put gas in my car. I don't put gas in my car anymore, which is lovely, by the way, but they're also learning a skill. And as a mom, I love it when it's done my way, and it's not done my way when they do it. However, they are learning how to do things their way, and that's my job. My job is actually to not be needed. It's that awful Anna Freud quote, I think it's that a mother's job is to be left. And I'm going to be so sad when my kids go, I'm already planning the many animals I'm going to adopt and the many trips I'm going to have to go on. What I want is to give the world people who are very able and problem solving and can pivot on a dime and can advocate when they need something, that they have the words. It's not easy, but I think when we do it in tiny iterations, it actually becomes so prideful, something I take satisfaction in, watching them not struggle. I was with a neighbor and she was like, he's ordering the meat at the deli counter. And I'm like, oh, yeah, he can totally do this. They've been doing that since like, and two of my kids had speech problems. So it is not a smooth, easy thing. It's like cheddar cheese. But by them struggling, it reminds them to enunciate. And people are always very polite, even if they're like forgetting their birthday and it takes another 30 seconds. That moment of embarrassment actually taught a whole bunch of resilience about I stammered, I thought, and I built a bridge and I was successful ultimately.
What do you experience when you think about that transition between being a mom of a younger son, where you needed to be tender and available, and there was lots of affection and lots of cuddles, through where you are now, where affection looks a little bit different and maybe dad's role is picking up a bit? And how did you come to terms with that transition?
Absolutely. Physical stuff, now that I have teenagers, it's different. They don't want me to hug them. They would never hold my hand. We even walk in a different way. It used to be that they would walk closer to me, and not like they're disowning me, but they do not want to be as close in a very healthy developmental way. We have boundaries coming online that are mutual. My husband is amazing. It very much reminds me when I need to be stepping back. My oldest son actually baits me. He's like, so like, oh, I'm bored. I'm just gonna go and tell mom something crazy and just watch her like get all spun up. And luckily, I try and meditate and I try and reflect, and I see him coming at me now, and I'm like, oh, you want me to? So I can see it coming, and I start smiling and I make it into a joke, or I'm like, you want me to get upset? You want, like, that's not going to work today, blah blah. And so we're able to laugh about it and go in a different direction. No one wants a teenager. Teenagers inherently are finding their own independence and they are trying to pull away from you, and we've got to let them do that, especially boys, because otherwise they're not going to go off and find an amazing girl or boy to be the rest of their lives. They're going to want to move in and be close to you. And I don't want that for them. I want them to want to leave at 18. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to have my next chapter. And I don't want this home to be so comfortable that they're like, oh, this is great. Mom and dad will hook me up. So part of it is making a little uncomfortable. It's also our house and our rules and showing respect. And that's a constant thing that we have to be reminding them about, because part of this is them feeling maybe appropriately, but like part of this is like, I have value and I have worth and I want this. And it's like, yeah, you can want things. That doesn't mean we're giving it to you. That doesn't mean that's what's happening here. So we have struggles around a few things. Because there are three of them, we actually have to be very top down, because if they knew their power, they could revolt. Like, it really is. And luckily, we're very communicative. I asked my kids before doing this, oh, what should I say? What do moms of boys need to know. And one of the things that my most sensitive child said is, your lectures are too long. If you lecture too long, kids don't hear you. So you need to make it way shorter and like tell us what we need to know and then like be done. I was like, that's actually very good advice.
Really good advice. One of the elements of mothering my 2 sons that I notice is that as they get older, exactly what you've said, that they need less maternal care and more maternal presence. So, it's not that my children need me to hold their hand or, sit with them at night or things like that, but they do want to, have a check-in. They want to know that I'm there and available to them, but they get to be the one to decide. It's like I'm in my office, and if they need me, they know where to find me. And so I'm still engaging in, showing attention and obviously family meals and things like that. But I'm not seeking them out in a way that says, you have to tell me this and you have to give me this because I need it. I'm not in a place where I need that validation either as a mom. And I think many moms that I've talked to have expressed that a lot of their sense of purpose and sense of meaning comes from their role as a mom. Often this transition from young boy to adolescent boy to teenage boy can be a bit jarring for moms who know themselves as chief affection officer in their house. And when a child pulls away in the ways that you have described already, that can sometimes feel like a rejection to the moms. And I'm curious, when you speak about having a partner in the house, having a husband in the house, what you think your boys are learning about masculinity or about relationships when they have that.
Well, the first thing I would say, but my husband would say, is you need to leave. That that it used to be that I would pick up my kids have three different schools and three different schedules. So it's wonderful. It affords us a lot of alone time. And it used to be that my oldest son would want to hang out with me. I'd buy him extra lunch and he would tour with me. And we've been trying to put more time where the oldest son and my husband are just together. And when I leave them here, I'm like, you don't even talk to him. Like, if I'm dropping him off for him to be with you, like in the house during this window, start programming, Dad, make a thing, make a plan. And my husband was like, just drop him off and we will figure it out. And it's been months now. And they watch Jeopardy, they talk, but it doesn't look like how I would have orchestrated it. And it's a reminder from back in the day when kids were little and like, if you want help from a husband, you can't orchestrate how it happens. You just have to let them do it their way. The way that my husband connects with our kids looks very different than how I do, and very different than how I might choose for them to do it. But it happens, and it happens organically in their own way, especially when I am not even in the house, ideally. But if I'm here, I'm away so that they can laugh about something stupid that I would make a judgment on, probably. And they would connect in a way that is, I don't even know if it's masculine, but it's just them. And every people have their own way of being. And I love that when I come in and they've watched a math video or Jeopardy, they also watch lots of stupid things that like Family Guides. And I very much am like common sense media. What's the age recommendation for this movie? And my husband's not. My husband's like showed them Jaws when they were little. And I was like, no, they won't go in the ocean. And the kids, of course, were like, bad graphics. That wasn't scary at all. And it was just a reminder that like, we all have our own experience that is very loud to us. And that doesn't mean that it's right or that it's the best way to move forward. So I think part of this is trusting the process and trusting my husband enough that, like, this is a shared mission we have. And he's, even if it looks weird and different for me, that he's doing what he thinks is needed. And as our boys get older, I don't want them to come and turn into me. I want them to turn into him. Like, I love my husband. He's successful, he is capable and funny and all these amazing things. My boys shouldn't be looking to me. They should be looking to him. And there was a great guru person that I loved, and it was all about how women, your mother teaches you how to be to yourself, and your father treats you how to be in the world. kind of teaches you who you are in the world. And this is for men and for women. But I think what I'm trying to show my kids is that, like, you're worthy of love. You're worthy of taking care of yourself. You're worthy of all of these things. And you're allowed to give that to yourself, and you're allowed to ask the world to give that to you. And then I want them to go over to my husband and be like, I'm a high achiever. I seek success. I work hard for success. If I'm not getting my needs met, I advocate, or I go somewhere else where my needs will be met. And I can't program my husband to give my kids what I think they, I've got to step back and stay in my lane. And this part about how do I mother a son, I want him to look at me. I want my sons to look at me and think, my mom sacrificed for our family. She loves us. She loves dad. And when it's my turn to pick, I want them to pick someone, hopefully, who will be as good to them as they possibly could, like that will gel with them and be the best for them. And the role that I need to play to kind of ensure that model, I think, is to play in my lane as best I can, and then trust the world piece, trust my husband piece, and obviously prevent any awful, awful things from happening.
The way that you said trusting your, I think in a lot of the rhetoric about parenting and mothering, we have really discredited the man's role and the husband's role and the partner's role and the dad's role in building young people into the adults that we want them to be. And I really love the way that you phrased that part of what your transition has included is gaining even more trust for your spouse that you selected to be the father of your children and to help guide them across the next steps towards their adulthood. So I could really relate to that. And I also think that that is what is often missing in a lot of marriages when people feel as if, well, I don't have the kind of partner I can trust. I don't have the person who's sort of my co pilot who I know can take the reins at this very important stage. Can you shed a little light on how you and your husband manage some of that risk assessment in the multiple environments because your kids are really active and engaged in not only in school, but also in your community?
So we have a little business that we run, and my youngest son was home from school, and there's a little store that's like 2 blocks away on a major road, but and we gave him, he had finished his work and he was now bored, and we still had like another hour to do. We gave him $5 and we said, go down to the store, pick something out, come back. And then he left. He's 11 years old. He's tall. We felt fine with it. But then he left, and the lady who was working with us was like, you just sent your 11-year-old out on this street in the middle of the day to go and shop? And my husband and I were like, oh no, it's totally fine. And then 30 minutes had gone by and we were like, oh crap, maybe that wasn't fine. Maybe that, and then, like, oh no. And then he comes walking in the door. And, I think this is complicated. We can't, whatever you focus on grows. And I think if you want to live in a world where there's a lot of scary monsters around every door, you make that. But you also have to know your people and know your space. And we knew enough to know, and we knew our kid enough to know that, like, that was fine for him. We send our kids out camping for the weekend, but we know the dads that are going to be there. We know the other adults, but they don't have cell phones. But we know, like, and even on these campouts, my kid like took a whole chunk out of his finger, and it was, there are things that happen because life happens. I don't think we can live in fear. And I think it's about building connections with people. I have a great husband, but many of my friends don't have we have to find communities where we exist within those communities, where there are wonderful men and wonderful women and other wonderful children, or children that we're all trying to prop up. I don't want to, this is a long road. I don't want to be so focused on every little bit that we are missing the perspective. And if they are not falling down, if they're not even like breaking bones and hurting themselves, and even my kid came back with a sunburn from the last camp out. And I'm like, I know you all have sunblock. The trailer has sunblock, and no one put it on, and you didn't reapply it. And he was like, I didn't even put it on once. And I'm like, I'm not following you around. You're old enough to know better. And it hurt. But I kind of feel like we don't want to bubble wrap the world, and we don't want to be in fear, but we also can't be naive. We live in a very small community, And even without a cell phone, like my kids don't have cell phones most of the time. I don't worry about them. If they needed me, they could still figure out how to call. They go to our local gym, they work out, they come home, they're gone for an hour and a half. And I don't worry because I know that if something bad's going to happen, like, and maybe it's that they're boys and I want them to be big and strong. Maybe if it were a girl, I would have different perspectives. But I kind of feel like trust is something that we have to grow, and we have to know that we've got good people around us, but then we have to understand. And the other thing is there's a lot of communication with my kids. Every day we have family dinner, ask open-ended question, who's going to share first every day, and they are programmed that we are sharing information. And like, even when we have long talks, I'm like, you don't want long talks? You tell me your opinion about kids and screen time. Let's make it a dialogue. I don't want to be monologuing. But so I feel like each of my kids is very different. I know when something's wrong. I know when something's right. I know when they need to be challenged more. And that kind of allows me to turn the dial slightly. Like, none of this is about big growth change. It's about finding where they are in a comfort zone and just giving them more space to struggle. Struggling is good. And being a little uncomfortable, like nervous tummy, within reason. And I have at least one of my kids is very anxious, very, very anxious, but we don't deal with it on a regular basis. He lives in a place where he's managing it. He has a way that we can talk about it quietly. But most of the time he comes back, he's like, that was crazy. I did this thing. I was really nervous. And I kind of feel like because there's a lot of words and a lot of dialogue, but there's also a lot of like freedom and opportunity, and none of it's forced, but it's hard. And I get it. And if I were a mom with just one child, I think I'd feel differently too. My kids often travel in packs or they travel with Boy Scouts. It's not like I'm often sending one of them independently. As a parent, we're meant to worry, and we do. How do you handle it, Anna?
In very similar ways, we obviously have very open communication about high risk environments and how important it is that they're in a state of awareness, not in a state of fear, but in a state of awareness and paying attention to behavior that stands out because, it's just so devastatingly predictable when these cases do happen that you notice a change in the behavior, you notice a child being singled out and being favored and being, isolated from the pack of other kids. So a lot of what you say about all three of the boys go out together, that they have a stature and a size that gives almost a built-in protection or a sense of security or safety in a way that maybe if they were built a little bit differently or a little bit smaller in stature, that might impact things. I find that the most important thing is having those daily check-ins, those daily, whether it's, in carpool and as soon as they've gotten in the car, and just being able to offer them the breadcrumbs that they need if they needed to hook on to something. And when something has ever gone down that's a little bit strange or a little bit odd, even if it's with a friend or a peer or someone else within a school or an activity, they've been given permission. I think a lot of times we're assuming that kids are going to start that conversation. And it's interesting when I listen to you and imagine, picture your dinner table at night with the five of you sitting around, really tackling hard subjects. I think about how important it is that we as moms set up the invitation to have that discussion and that dialogue. And if the invitation is there and it's not utilized, that's one thing. But if a child feels like they need to be the one to broach the subject or they need to be the one to create the invitation, it can sometimes be a challenge, which is where I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier about my role as a mom is less and less of an intervener and more of a presence. That I'm in the space, I'm in the house, I offer these invitations for connection and communication, but I'm not there to force it down their throat. And I need to remind myself, as your son says, to keep my lectures short and sweet.
I would also say another easy thing that we dumbed into is we watch media together and then we talk about it. And even what's happening in the news within reason, we'll often come onto the dinner table discussion. But we've been watching Love on the Spectrum, which is lovely. And it's seeing extreme examples of dating, but it allows us to talk about how important love is and how hard it is for everybody. It helps that there's like a lady who kind of is like, here's what you do, here's what you don't do. And these are boys. My boy, my 14-year-old, I mean, he's going to be hopeless in the dating realm probably for 10 years. We are watching someone talk about like, not too close, but close enough. Smile, but not too much. Ask, share the conversation. These having an opportunity where you are laughing together, using it sometimes as a joke to go back to. I think having humor and having perspective is very important. But this is a long, long road. And if they don't have a crappy year in school, and if they don't have, then I almost feel like that's strange. I, we, we've had all of the normal bumps. It's good when things just aren't bad. And the absence of bad is where we're kind of are right now. And that's good. Like, I think it's meant to be hard, but I do think translating the world through them, through media and shared knowledge is also something as a parent where we are kind of downloading our values in a kind of backdoor way. Do you do anything like that with your kids?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like a lot of the documentaries that are available nowadays about social media and the influence of big tech on young brains is so readily available that I don't even have to work that hard in finding and being inspired by a lot of those films and movies. At the end of this experience of living in our home, we want them to have that sense of that they know how to not only trust the world around them, but trust themselves and to get a read on the world around them so that if a situation is strange or if somebody's acting in a weird fashion or something goes against their values or morals, that they have the voice that they developed when they were ordering the meat at the deli line and prescription in line. We do the same thing when we're at restaurants and it's very emboldening to a small child to have to sit up in their seat and, proclaim what they want and do so in a respectful way. And that may just be the South and the South rubbing off on my kids and my parenting. But I think that's an important trait as they go and prepare themselves for being in the world in really micro ways through school and through outings and different activities. But then in a larger scheme, thinking through what kind of world do I want to be a part of and what kind of world do I want to build? Because so many young people are now sharing their voices and sharing their experiences through social media. Even though my kids don't have access to social media in the same way, I do think that it's helping parents to use those as fodder for conversation inside the home when you're ready for it.
I couldn't agree more. I think the other thing when we talk about like dialogue and keeping dialogue open with children, I feel like as we get older children, as my 14-year-old has problems, which are normal, we do a lot of like talking behind the curtain. Like, we're going to talk to you like you're an adult. We're going to deal with this and we're going to explain, especially discipline for us often involves screen time and abuse or use of technology. And so we use it to be like an explanatory thing. And often we're like, you would love to have candy for breakfast and for lunch. And we love you so much that we're not going to let you poison your body. And therefore, so that we are trying to use an extreme example to pull them onto our side. And my hope is that they are internalizing, along with all of these being able to self advocate, a bit of a coach where you're like, I want to stay up late, but I know I have a test tomorrow. I have to go to bed. And this idea that you have some self discipline and you can kind of coach yourself, I think that is a hard thing for adults to do. But if you can be a kid that's like, I should just put that thing away or I'll put it in my backpack so I know where I will take it to school and turn it in tomorrow. Like some of these fundamental executive functioning things, I think the more that we can kind of articulate out loud what we do, what we are trying to do when we discipline, why everything, the whys, even when they're like, God, mom, I roll, they're hearing it and they're doing it sometimes. But this is the beginning of laying a foundation where they're like, oh, hang on, that's important. I'm going to put a Post-it note by the door so that I don't leave without the $5 for the field trip. And these kind of simple things that we can, I mean, I just, when I taught, parents would come in and we would have a meeting about their kid, and my co-teacher and I would be like, so like, this is important. We are all, as parents, surviving what we have in front of us. And obviously there's like an order of magnitude, but we have to focus on the biggest thing that we can handle at that time. And sometimes that means when we've made a mistake with our child, I'm sorry, I did not handle that very well. Let's do a drive through. Let's get home. Let's see what you need from me. And that we are giving to them in a way that we can do the best that we can wherever we are in that moment. And this sometimes sounds like I've got lots of time to, pontificate, and I kind of do sometimes, but a lot of what happens on the fly, and you're like, oh crap, if I were thinking better, I would have said it that way, and I didn't, and I hope they don't think I meant. And I think when we're like, "Hey, guess what? Mom made a boo-boo. I didn't mean it like that. Your feelings got hurt. That was not my intention." Then we become very human. And in our kids' eyes, being human, I think it builds a rapport that hopefully 10 years out, they'll still care what we think because we're able to say, we were wrong. Do you struggle?
Well, when I hear you say that, it reminds me of a recent client I had who was struggling with um, mishandling a morning with her 4-year-old son, and that she was really felt like such a failure. And we don't often talk about mom failure in a very constructive way. We just sort of talk about it in a self torture way of like, oh, I'm such a bad mom, or I made such a mom
So
mistake.
true. So true.
And it the piece that we kept coming back to was, but you have the afternoon, you have the time when you pick him up, you have, the bedtime routine, you have the bath time routine. You have these moments. It's not as if it's a one and done. This harkens back to the theme of presence, that when you're around, when you're there, when you're showing up, when you are in the space with your child, you have many more opportunities to redo, to go back, to even dialogue about, if I were to do the morning differently, here's what I would have done instead. Is there anything you would have done instead? Or what would you have done instead? Now, you may not be able to do this with a 4-year-old, but that's certainly a tool that I use with my preteens and the teens in my house, because it's really important for them to see that in family systems and in relationships, we break and repair, and we break and repair. And that is not something that is outside of healthy relationships. It's actually a really important component of those healthy relationships.
Furthermore, we are in the car a lot in our family, and I know other families too. That is great time to dialogue whatever it is that's going on. And I find an open-ended question and driving, and they'll say stuff, and you'll be like, "That's interesting. Tell me more about that. Oh, really? Your friend is doing what? What? Oh, that's cool. Calm. Tell me more. Tell me more." And I think what we want, for me, what I want are boys that share their feelings and can articulate their day. And if something's happening, I want to be able to have the beginning of this bubbling out. And driving time. You can have the radio going, but listen and ask and let them just go. We feel like it's a very non threatening time to get information out. Also, for us, it's cooking together. Sometimes I can get them, oh, you stir this and you do that. Tell me about, and it just, it's anything you can do wherever your kid is open. That's where you want to get them. Like, you want to get them when they're kind of like happy to share. But I do also think it's very important that when they're like, I don't want to tell mom stuff anymore, that there's somebody else, that it's not like there's a time now where I'm like, stop. My little coach is saying to me, leave him alone. He shared. That's enough. Don't probe anymore. Let it be. I do still go through backpacks. I go through things. I have all of their email on my phone so I can check. And none of them are on social media, but we take, the one that has a phone, we take it and we check it. It's not a perfect system. And I do think we cannot be naive. And we have to show up when we're not expected, and we have to know the friends. And We don't really do sleepovers. If there's a sleepover, it's in our house. So that helps a lot. I know I have my pulse. I'm at the Boy Scout meeting. I'm watching my kids, but I'm not watching in a way that is, I hope I'm not watching in a way that's leaving a mark. It's more like the dragonfly, I think they call it, like no snowplow. I'm just like keeping, and I'm waiting to see if I have any like, that's weird. Why is that happening? Because I don't have that often, but I'm constantly surveilling for and not just my children. We have like almost 50 kids in our Boy Scout troop. If there's somebody, and I've been so impressed this year. We've had some very neurodivergent. We've got a kid in a wheelchair who joined. Like we've got very, very different skill levels. And so I'm often watching for more of an accessibility issue. But in that watching, I'm also watching, how is the group moving? What, it's amazing how intuitive it is when things are wrong. Your body is like, why? Why is that? And then you just investigate, and it's usually pretty easy to understand more. But I love that your new book, Wait, That's Weird. I think that's going to be very useful for parents.
What's something that you want your son to know before he leaves the house and moves on into being a young adult man out in the world?
I think just that the phone line is always open, and the invitation for like Sunday chicken dinner, the kind of basic stuff. I am hopeful. Like, you want an exciting world. You want there to be like, not dangerous, but like new experiences and kind of crazy cool stuff. And when I was his age, I was going on a plane and I was going to Europe by myself. Like, and now people are like, oh my God, your parents didn't love you. How could they have done that? It's a different time. And I mourn that because I would love to be able to put my kids on a plane and be like, a cousin will pick you up. It'll all be fine. What I want them to know is that like life is exciting and life is to be enjoyed, and like find cool people. And the sunblock song, wear sunblock, like don't be reckless with your heart and don't be reckless with others. I mean, if you are not enjoying life, then I kind of feel like I'm sad for you. And I want my children to achieve and to like, but I want them to have purpose, and I want them to be connected. And ultimately, I think that could look like so many different things. I want them to feel like they have a purpose and that they are loved and a part of something. And that, I mean, my goal, I would love them to bring home three lovely partners. And I have my own goal, but for them, I want them to feel the joy that I feel when I see them doing something new for the first time, even when they fail, that there is a bravery and an aliveness in which they are living the world. What about you? So your kids are going out in the world sooner than mine. What do you want them to take with them that maybe is different or nuanced?
Well, I want them to know that where they left is solid enough to leave, that they don't need to worry about doubling back. They don't need to limit their sights because of having to tend to anybody in the house. And I feel like that's really important, especially as kids have a lot of competing desires, and they also want to make sure that they're, especially in mother son dynamics, it can look a little bit complicated, and it can feel as if for many young boys they are the man of the household, and when they leave or if they move away or take on a new challenge or are risk taking in the ways that we've just talked about, it can sometimes feel like I'm abandoning mom. And so I need to be the kind of mother who can be left, like Anna Freud said, and to know that the house is stable, to know that the house still stands to that same end, that you can come back for those Sunday chicken dinners, but also that you can leave and that we will be here in our presence when you're ready to be invited back in. And I think they've seen that in everything that we have modeled inside the house. But it's such a good reminder for us that we we're giving them roots so that they can take on wings. And even though that's can sometimes be a little bit Groundhog Day-ish and, repetitive and having structure and stability and predictability. As a parent, we know that that is really establishing great foundation for them to fly away and know that everything is stable and secure at home.
I would also add, so I go to this weekly Boy Scout meeting, and the women the moms, we kind of all get together and just survey and chat and do what women do. And one of the things, we have ninth grade sons, and we're already like, how are we going to handle when they go to college? That is already something that we touch on every week to differing degrees. Make a plan now. Don't wait until they go to college to be like, "Oh, I've got this big open space." If it's a pet, if it's a hobby, someone's taking on art. And I'm like, art could grow that to you. And she's like, oh, yeah, art could take over my life and give me so much joy. And for me, it's more swimming in nature. Figure out what it is. Like, it's not sad when our kids go. It is a celebration of us doing a great thing. Like, that's the goal we want. So I think it's very important that we find another joyous goal that we almost start cultivating around like high school time, and friends that are part of that, friends ideally that you're going to be like, oh, they're going, and they can be like, yes, mine's going, and that we're not alone in it, because it could be sad and it's not sad. And the way we make it not sad is we plan, just like other life events happen, we find the breastfeeding group, or we find the other kid playtime, so that we have other people. We need to remember that we need to find a new purpose and a new connection to be able to get through that little spell until it's something new that's wonderful and different.
I love that. I love that. I think that's so succinct. So, in closing, Fiona, I want to ask you, what is one question you wish every mother who tunes into this program today, a mother of a son, should be asking herself right now?
Open answered questions is actually something I had to struggle to do, because I would ask questions that were had a yes no answer, and therefore my kid would answer yes or no, and I'd be like, tell me more, and they're like, I already answered your question. So I guess one thing that I would say to moms is like, listen to how you speak, and maybe just be aware, if you can, that you're like, is it a dead end? Because if it's a dead end, the kid's going to be like, done, I'm out of here. So kind of like being like, ooh, what was the interesting thing from school today? What was the hardest thing? And then, ooh, tell me more, like faking interest, making them talk, even if it seems like it's like a bologna sandwich or whatever. Like, just have them articulating to you, gives you something to work with. And if they are low and it doesn't, then can you do it in nature? Can you do it like, I think having a pulse on our kids' emotionality as mom, and like seeing if they're low, how to bolster them. And if they're really high, do I need to understand, like, is that too high? Is something like, and maybe it's a girl. And I think the new thing that I'm kind of a little worried about, and not worried is the wrong word, but I read this research about how boys, once they become sexually active, can have this over attachment to a girl, and that now the girl could just walk away and find somebody else. And it's actually one of the leading causes for like young boy suicide. And I kind of feel like that almost feels like it could be obvious as a mom who loves boys, that like that could be an internal implosion where like they aren't processing their feelings. So I kind of feel like this also kind of dovetails with the message of, if you can have them talking, then if you can be like, oh, you're upset, I see you're upset, how can we be here together? Because upset happens, and we're not trying to cure normal things. We are just trying to make sure they're not alone with something that feels really, really unmanageable. And maybe it's with dad, maybe it's not, maybe it's by himself or with a family dog. But like, I don't want you to be, as my kid, any kid, alone with a big feeling, thinking drugs are a good solution, suicide is a good solution, I'm going to go on social media and blow things up emotionally that's then going to have ricocheting effects. I want to hold your emotionality in a way that allows you to gently deal with the growing up of this really difficult time, and in a way that's like loving and nurturing and like holding a space. If we just stay the middle and we know our children and we love them and we're present and show up for them, then I think we actually are bolstering them against all the worries that we have. If we focus on the worries, we go crazy. But if you focus on just like FaceTime with your kid, open ended answers, dialogue, and a bit of physicality, like you can, yeah, my 14-year-old, I'm touch his back. We're not repelling each other. I want them to remember that they are like grounded humans with all of the physical stuff too. But talk to your kid, be open to your kid, be around your kid. Kids are awesome. My husband's often like, this is so hard. And I'm like, this might be the best time of our life right now. You think this is hard? This might be the golden years that we look back on and we are like, wasn't it fun when they were 14? What about you? What do you wish every mother asked themselves?
Question every mother of a son should be asking herself right now. I think something that I'm asking myself is how to how to show care and affection to a teenage son because it looks a little bit different. It doesn't look like hugs and kisses. And one of my boys, when he's in a really joyful place, he high fives me or he gives me a handshake or he gives me a fist bump. And that may not seem like much, but for our dynamic and for our relationship, he knows that if he ever needs a hug, he can always come and get one. But for him to initiate that contact and for us to know amongst each other, okay, he's in a really good place. And, a handshake is probably the least affectionate thing you can do with somebody, but it's his way in showing me, I see you and I appreciate what you're doing for me. He's not going to say that. He's unlike when he was,
No.
10 or 11 years younger, where he would say, Mommy, I need you, and thank you, Mommy, and those sorts of things. Now, what thank you looks
You.
like is, I'm going to fist bump you after that great dinner in the kitchen or give you a high five as I'm leaving to drive myself to school. And as a mom, knowing that showing affection is not reaching out and demanding a hug or reaching out to necessarily force that physical affection, but being in a present and inviting position that says, yeah, we shook hands this morning and you're off to a good place today. And like, but doing that scientific work in your own house. And for me, understanding like, and you said that a little bit earlier in the conversation, like, get to know your child. This is not just about feeding them and bathing them and getting them to the next benchmark. Get to know them. That's what keeps kids coming back. That's what keeps adult children returning to their adult parents after they've outgrown the home experience. And I think that it's so important when I, as a mom, put myself in a position of how do I get to know this person, not just as my son, but how do I get to know him as a human being? Because he is a unique individual. And my job is to give him wings and propel him onto his beautiful, wonderful life to come in the future. And I think that I've gained so much from listening to what you have said in our conversation today. And hopefully, anybody who's listening has the opportunity to think, what what am I seeking from my relationship with my son? What am I pouring into my son? And how am I making sure that I am the best role model for female energy and maternal leadership in my household?
Well, it's been an honor. I feel like I've been doing this now for like, a while, and putting words on it is actually kind of a weird, kind of crazy thing too. So thank you for the opportunity to do that. This has been great. And I really feel like it's an honor in my life to be a parent. And even when it sucks, there's enough good that outweighs the bad. And like we need to remember that we're not alone in this. And we keep our chins up and we remember that it's not a perfect thing. And it isn't for anyone. That's a lie.
Yeah, it's a marathon, not a sprint. We have multiple opportunities. Even if we do make a misstep, we have multiple opportunities to seek information, get help, use resources, and do better next time. So I think you've shed a lot of light on the ways in which your family operates and supports your sons. And I'm so grateful for the transparency and honesty today and helping the moms who are listening and the dads who are listening about how we can support our young sons in 2026. So thank you for spending the last hour with us.
Of course, anytime. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.